Well, good morning. Good morning. Very nice to see you all in this new year. Doesn't feel any different than the old year, does it? As we engage this practice, time takes on a very different perspective. One year, when I was teaching at the seminary at Unity Village, my students gave me a homemade clock for a gift. And the hands of the clock were just like the regular clock, but instead of numbers, it said now, 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 now. And so I find that very helpful, that it's always now. It's never not been now, right? No matter what we think about, past, future, everything happens right now. Or it doesn't happen at all. The only time we can make changes in our life is right now. The only time we can make a decision is right now. So we come into the present moment, and in this, I think nature is a great teacher. You know, nature is always in the present moment. It seems like animals always live in the present moment. It's all they know is now. So today I want to talk about birds. The bird is a metaphor for freedom. It's long been a metaphor for spiritual freedom. Because the bird is not earthbound like us human beings. The bird is capable of transcending the earth, rising above it. And the bird symbolizes that spirit, that soul, that inner being within us that knows that our true nature is not earthbound. We live in this animal body, sort of like a hairless primate. So we don't look a whole lot different than other animals in many ways, other than we wear clothes. Animals don't. Our body's not much different, but we are vastly different than animals in the sense that we have the ability to be aware of our awareness. We have the ability to say, I'm aware, and I know that I'm aware. That's the most powerful gift that we have as human beings. It's not just awareness, but a reflective awareness. An awareness that can look at itself. That can say, in this moment, am I aware? Well, if I say, no, I'm not aware right now, there must be a part of me that knows that I'm not aware, right? And so people will sometimes say, oh, I just blew the last meditation period. Why, I had no awareness for 30 minutes. And my response is often, well, it sounds like you're aware that you had no awareness. So something must have been aware, you see. So awareness is the medium in which we work in this practice. We know innately that we are not earthbound beings. That's why the bird inspires us. That ultimately we are free. We are free in so many ways. And as we grow spiritually, we begin to sense that our true home is not of this earth. You know, we're visiting, vacationing, serving time, however you want to look at it. But we're here. We're here for a period of time. But there's this sense that there's more to us than that. And so I like to use the bird as a metaphor for practice, in that sense that the bird represents freedom. And I want to talk specifically about the wings of the bird. The wings of the bird as the two aspects of the practice. I've talked about one of them already, and that is the wing of awareness. But that's only one wing. The other wing is that of equanimity. Equanimity means non-resistance. It means we're not demanding that our present moment experience be any different than it is. We are, in a sense, making friends with the present moment. The famous, now famous, Thai meditation master Ajahn Chah would sometimes say this practice really is quite simple. You sit in an empty room and you just make friends with whoever walks in. And that's what the practice is. We empty the room and we make friends with whoever walks in. And sometimes we don't necessarily like who walks in. We may pretend to say welcome, but on the other side of our mouth we're saying, there's the door, by the way, you know, you're welcome to leave. But our experiences don't necessarily leave when we want them to. They leave when they're ready. You know, our anger, our fear, our joy, whatever it is, has a life of its own. It comes and goes as it pleases. That's not our agenda to control that. But the choice we have is whether or not we make friends with that experience, or we either push it out the door, or we try to captivate it and possess it. You know, if it's pleasant, we chain it to the chair. We don't want it to leave. If it's unpleasant, we want to sweep it out the door as quickly as possible. But equanimity is simply welcoming whatever is here equally Equanimity means equal-mindedness. Now, it doesn't mean we necessarily like what we experience. It may be painful. And I'm not telling you to enjoy pain. Few people do. I certainly don't. But what we can do is to recognize that it's okay, that there's nothing wrong, that it's not a sign of something broken. So much of the time we spend our life arguing with reality. Equanimity is when we stop arguing with reality. And we simply say, this is what is, and we make peace with what is. So awareness and equanimity are sometimes used as, the wings of the bird are sometimes used as metaphors for awareness and equanimity. And the bird's wings are particularly apt because they have to fly in unison. You know, the bird may have one good right wing and one good left wing, but if it doesn't fly together, it's not going to fly. Or it's not going to fly in a straight line. It's going to go around in circles. So that metaphor shows us, or reflects, I should say, the fact that equanimity and awareness need to be integrated into our practice so that both happen at the same time. Typically, awareness comes first because we can't have equanimity with something we're not aware of. And then immediately after we become aware of something, there's a response, a feeling response, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And if it's unpleasant, then we are conditioned to try to reject it. If it's pleasant, we are conditioned to want to grasp a hold of it. So it's important to realize that we're really undoing one of the deepest propensities that humans have, and that is to want to avoid what's painful and grasp onto what's pleasant. But that propensity to do that, to avoid the pain and to grasp a hold of what's pleasant, is what makes us subject to conditioning. And that's how we train an animal. When it does what we want it to do, we give it a cookie or whatever, you say. When it doesn't, we wrap it with a newspaper or whatever. Not if it's a canary, of course, but if it's a bird, you know, a big animal, appropriately so. But same thing happens to us. You know, our culture, our family, our parents, knowingly or unknowingly conditioned us in much the same way. You know, they smiled when we did something they liked, frowned when we didn't. You know, that's, to a young child, that's pleasant, unpleasant. You know, mom's approval, dad's approval is everything. So, what we're doing is not just undoing our conditioning, but we're undoing our propensity to be conditioned. In other words, we're no longer subject to conditioning. And that's really the ultimate freedom. When we're no longer imprisoned by avoiding what's painful and chasing what's pleasant. When we're able to say, okay, this is life, this is my experience in this now moment, then we're free. We're free. There's a story from the Zen tradition. And like so many Zen stories, it's a metaphor. Don't take it too as if it's a historic fact. I don't think it is, but nonetheless, the story goes that many years ago, Genghis Khan and his marauders were pillaging a village, and Khan came upon this monastery at the center of the village. And he knocked the door down and walked into the monastery and clanked in with his boots and his armor. And all he saw was a lone monk sitting in the middle of the monastery, the temple room. The monk was meditating, and Khan clanked over and stood in front of him, and the monk never moved. Finally, Khan said, "Do you know who I am?" And the monk went. Khan said, "I'm somebody that could run this sword through you and not even bat an eye." And he pulled out this sword. He put it right at the monk's belly. And the monk said, "Do you know who I am?" And God said, "No." The monk said, "I am one who can have a sword run through him without batting an eye." And then Khan took his sword, put it back in the sheath, stomped out. He couldn't terrorize the monk. So he was defeated. You see, if we can't be terrorized by fear, if we can't be goaded by anger, we're invincible, we're free. You see. And again, don't take that, don't try this at home. I guess that's but it's a great metaphor. So as we do our practice, we're constantly monitoring where our awareness, what the degree of awareness is, and what the degree of equanimity is. And sometimes we need to focus more on one than the other. Some of us have a propensity to be more type A, aggressive. Boom, we want to attack the practice. I'm going to be aware if it kills me, you know. And so there can be some wisdom that comes out of this, but it's a rather dry, brittle wisdom. It's a kind of a harsh wisdom. When we bring in equanimity, there's a softness. It brings in the heart. Now, if we have too much equanimity and not enough awareness, then just the opposite can happen. We can really have an open heart, a smile on our face, and feel real good, and sort of doze through our meditation practice. And that may have the result of opening our heart and making us more compassionate to a degree, but there's little wisdom in that. And we can engage in what some teachers call idiot compassion. And that is compassion that has no wisdom in it. Compassion that knows no boundaries. Compassion that has no discernment. You see. So awareness and equanimity are like the wings of a bird. And when the bird flies, it's just one of the most beautiful things in nature to see that happen. And in our practice, we're constantly monitoring, do I need to bring in more awareness, more effort, more awakeness? If I'm falling asleep, I don't necessarily need equanimity. I need awareness. I need some energy, you see. And on the other hand, if I'm really uptight, straining, trying, then maybe I need to bring some softness, some heart into the practice. So we're constantly monitoring both of these and bringing them into balance. And sometimes what we notice is like the bird in flight, it may be flying along on an updraft, just very little effort, making lots of mileage, doing great, having fun. And all of a sudden it hits a storm. And then it's got to work like heck. It hits a headwind. Suddenly the bird's got to flap its wing and work real hard just to stay where it is, you see. And sometimes that happens to us, that we're sitting, we're cruising, as it were, and then all of a sudden people will say, Robert, you know, I was just sitting there and all of a sudden all this stuff came up. I'm struggling. I don't want to be here. 10 minutes ago I was in joy and bliss, and now I can't wait to get out of here, you see. And that happens, you see. So when that happens, we need to work on equanimity. It's very important not to judge yourself, recognizing that, you know, the bird doesn't condemn the headwind. It doesn't condemn the storm. It just adjusts to it accordingly. So this practice is an art. It's not a science. You know, there are principles, but it's more of an art, and that's why it's helpful to have a teacher, have a coach. And that coach can tell you when to zig, when to zag, when to apply this and when to apply that. So, I think I'll stop with that. Our time's just about up. So, when you meditate, you might have that image of a bird sitting on a perch. And when you go to fly, notice you're using both wings. Bring in each wing of the practice, the awareness, the equanimity. Bring them together. Namaste.